Hi guys, welcome to another brand new episode of Life Matters with Anna Dedire. And I am sure that when you're watching this, you will be pleasantly surprised by my guest. For those that know him, they'll be like, "What? I know. What did you do?" So, geez, what? So, my guest today is Soji Obatusin, and I've known Soji since 2017, May, June ish. I think it was, yeah.
Was it 2017 for that
Yes, it
convention?
was it
Yeah.
was Calgary convention. And there was this one person that wore glasses when I was doing my auditions and said, okay, yes, say yes. I remember it was you, Tommy Day, Lewis, Sister Darren, and Easy. 5 of you.
For some odd reason, I don't even remember that. There were so
Yeah.
many auditions, but yeah.
So yeah, I remember that. Then I remember that when they were playing the keys for the people that were on the keys, it was always the one that was always beside one of the other people. So it was so much fun working with choir then, and meeting a lot of new faces. Like a lot of relationships I've built over the years has been through choir, through like social media relationships and stuff like that. So that's how long I've known the married man, Soji. Soji, the married man. So he's married to a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful African sister of ours. And he's doing a great job taking care of her. So we are very proud of him. We are proud in you.
Well,
Soji is a
my wife is actually
musician.
Jamaican. Oh. My wife is Jamaican, but they're
All
still
of
from
us, we are all
Africa.
cousins. What's wrong with you? All of us are cousins. We are just showing ourselves that whatever. But I remember that one of the things that I really, really loved about 2017 was the coordination. It was really well coordinated. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, we had the RCCG convention, and that was how I met Soji and a whole lot more of amazing choir people, if I'll use that word, a lot of amazing people that were part of the choir. So Soji is a musician, a producer, an instrumentalist, a music critic, a choir director, a choir, like Soji is everything. If you're looking for music, Soji is 7 in 1. Um, so today we continue our conversation with music, excellence, and growth. And there's one person I always take joy to rant with. Every time we always have conversation, and so just one of those people. We always having banter about different things when it cuts across music. But before I start, Saji, do you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been doing music?
So my name is Soji, as Anu has already said, and thanks Anu for having me on your show. I don't take the invitation lightly. So I guess to answer question, what was it? One, I've done music since I was 5 years old. I actually started out playing as a drummer, and I still vaguely remember this as a kid when we lived in Nigeria. Then I would always just jump on the drums at church after service, and my mom would literally have to drag me off of it to go home. And then when we moved to Canada, that was years ago. I won't say what year, but when we moved to Canada, I continued playing music. I played drums. Eventually, there was a need for keyboard players, so I taught myself how to play keyboard. But I continued playing drums while still in school. So I'd play drums, in the school bands and stuff like that, or as a percussionist. So I would do all of that in school, but at church, everybody just knew me as a piano player. Eventually, to the point where a lot of people don't even know I play drums. Till this day, they just know me as a keyboard player. So yeah, I produce music, I write music, I arrange music, I mix music. I also do recording engineering work. And I've done production since 2007. So just after I graduated high school, a friend of mine, we were actually attending the same church, got me into music production. Because he just felt, based on my ability to play, he felt I would be able to make pretty good rap beats. So he introduced me to Fruity Loops, and that was where I kind of started. Eventually, I started, diving into really, really producing. So I got the chance in 2008. Yeah, late 2008. I got a chance to work with some Houston-based artists, which I think one of them, her husband is, or one of them, his wife is a regular on Anu's show, Toyosi Yoshinobu. So I worked with her husband on, I think, his first two albums. And I've also worked with some other guys that are also Houston based as well. So eventually, the music thing really became serious. I actually studied music in university. I have a jazz diploma, and that was as a drummer, not as a keyboard player. Then eventually, I went to Full Sail University in 2014, and I did music production and sound engineering. And yeah, now I still work as a producer, mixer, recording engineer, whichever aspect of the of the skill needs to come out. I bring it out when it's needed. So, and then I've also done, choir directing, which that one I've done for years, as far back as I can remember. I've done it since I was probably 15 or 16. Was helping worship teams and choirs and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's a little bit of a background story into me. So yeah.
Wow, like if someone would tell me outside that you actually played more drums than keyboard, I'll be like, no, maybe it's another person. So you have that calm. And I put this post up the other day, I think it was last week, and I'm like, why instrumentalists tag bad boys, especially drummers, and drummers were always the bad boys in the entire band. You won't see, because the keyboardists are always like, maybe because they're always main center, so they're always very calm. Guitarist, okay, it's always that guy that you remember that, oh, he played this chord. But drummers, they're always bad. There's that word. But some people make comments. I remember that one of the instrument musicians for one of the drummers for House on the Rock Lagos was like, I know anyone can be bad, don't don't tag us
It's
drummers as
true.
that. So it
It's
was just
true.
hilarious. It was
Because the
really
funny thing is, in the music culture, I know a lot of keyboard players, especially US based keyboard players who are bad. Uh, so it's not just drummers. I think it's just a season that everybody gets to at some time where you're feeling yourself maybe a bit too much. And the thing is, with being a musician, I'll even say it, I think a lot of musicians, being a musician, and if you're really good, it attracts a lot of attention, especially from women. It attracts a lot of attention, and if you're not wise, that could actually end up being a trap. So you have to be very, very wise about how you handle a lot of those situations, because, like, I mean, every musician will attest to that girl that comes to you after church or after a gig or something and says, I want to take lessons. So and instead of saying, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give you lessons, right, wisdom will tell you, okay, tell the girl to go and buy a keyboard. That's when you'll know that she's actually serious about taking the lesson, right? And it kind of diverts the attention away from you. So, but anyways, that's another story for another day.
let's not even go there. So my first question is this. You touched on something that a lot of people struggle with. I want to learn how to play the keys, or I want to be a very great singer, or I want to join the choir. And I remember last week when I was talking to Palumi made mention that when you first join their church, they tell you, oh, go sit down, let's observe and see what's going on around. Like, and they kind of, what they call, what people say, bench you for a
Okay.
couple of months, right? So that at least you know the layout. And you notice that people that are serious will actually be the ones that will sit down, see the layout, work around the layout, and say, okay, this is what this church is all about. On the other end of things, just like the example you gave, oh, I had to me surgery. I want to learn how to play the keyboard. Okay, you know what? Go to Longer McQuaid. This is even my discount code. Go buy a keyboard. That's the end of it. You won't hear anything again. The third thing he mentioned, which is similar to what you said also, is practice starts from the house. Rehearsal is all the practice that everybody has done at home that they bring to church.
Yep.
So, as a choir director, what's that huge challenge you faced over the years when it comes to working with different voices, working with different people that really say they want to improve, they want to be better, but if you dig deep, you see that they don't pass wherever it is that they are. They're always floating the same place, and you don't see that level of growth in them. And what causes that?
Um, I guess the the thing is, with choir, with musicians, always tell people, like, you have to see yourself beyond being a singer or being an instrumentalist, right? You have to see yourself as a musician. And the really good musicians, they simply just practice. Um, and the practice is just a process that people don't want to go through because it's a lot of work. Um, but the funny thing is, you realize later that you enjoy the process a lot more than you actually do maybe even the gigs or the performing and stuff like that, because in the process you discover little ideas. In the process is where your ears develop. um, so that process of just spending, if you're a singer, 30 minutes to an hour a day just working on your vocals and warming up your vocals. As a keyboard player, running your scales, practicing out your chords, finding different ways to voice your chords. You can, anybody can play a 4 chord or a 1 chord or a 5 chord, but then how many different ways can you voice that same chord, right? That's where the practice comes in. So you're now becoming like a student of the craft, and you're understanding, right? It's one thing to have the knowledge, right? But it's another thing to have an understanding. Understanding will tell you what to play when, right? Knowledge will just let you play it, right? But then knowing the right place to play that chord, or as a drummer, the right place to play that fill, or as a singer, the right place to do that specific run, right? That's where understanding of what you're actually doing would come from. So I guess, yeah, the biggest struggle I think I've run into with whether it's singers or even musicians is just practicing from home. The reality, and the practicing has to go beyond your own level of understanding. There is a form of investing in yourself. So if that means you have to you know find a vocal teacher that will teach you, because there's always going to be somebody better than you. So find someone who will teach you, or invest in like a vocal program for like a 6-week course, and keep the material and reuse the material, go back to it. I mean, I left Full Sail 2016, and I still go back to my recording principles classes, the notes from that, just to review maybe certain things, right, that I may have forgotten, because you will never ever know everything. And that's one thing about music. It's that one thing that God gave us that I don't think anybody will ever be a master of it. You can put your 10,000 hours in, and you can be good at it, but there's always going to be something that you'll be able to learn from somebody else. Even people that might not be as skilled as you will still learn something from them. So yeah, it's a thing where you just have to invest in yourself, and buy material that will help you grow. Same thing with musicians. There's online courses now, of even some of our favorite musicians that you can partake in to learn and grow yourself in the craft. And one thing with music is that the application of everything that you're learning comes in when you're playing. So you can get real-time application of what you're learning by getting involved in, whether it's your local church choir or a local band, and apply the things that you're learning, so that your skill continues to develop, and you're also training your ears to be better. So yeah, the biggest struggle is practice.
Yeah, the biggest struggle is practice. And I remember that I even for myself, I told myself that, oh, you know what, for this next how many months, I'm gonna be doing 30 minutes rehearsals every day. But by the time I go from point A to B to C, I am me myself, I can't even sing for myself. I can't sing for myself because I am already maxed out for the entire day. And I see the struggle, especially and what I wanted to, part of the reason why I touched on that question is I noticed that once people very few people actually maintain um their love and passion for wanting to be a better musician or singer after they get married. And I don't know why I noticed it. Maybe for the women, not necessarily the men. I noticed that the men still kind of maintain a large level of, oh, I've been a drummer all my life. A lot of my friends that are drummers are married guys. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
for me, I still see a lot of them still put in the work. They're badass. They're doing great, amazing work. on the female side, I noticed that it's always a mix and match of things. You either see someone that extremely just doesn't want to improve themselves anymore or finds it difficult to improve themselves because of life, or you see someone that amidst life, they still go an extra mile to listen to every brand new song, to rehearse, to harness their skills so that it's better. Going to the conversation of the church, and this is one thing that I have struggled with a lot when it comes to singing and improving and stuff like that. Is it up to the church pastor to improve the sound of the church, or is it up to just the choir director? Because I've heard churches where the pastor is like, you are there sitting down, the choir is singing off. And the pastor comes on stage and said, oh my God, put your hands together for the choir. That was an amazing move of God. And to be very sincere, sometimes off key distracts them. I'm not saying God can move off key, but it distracts you as the person in the congregation, because the only thing you're trying to like, okay, let me just listen to this song. Okay. Let me try and filter my head. But the truth is, you still have that struggle. Is it up to the pastor to say, you know what, this is what I want, this is what must be done? Or is it up to just the choir director to say, you know what, this is what I can do, this is what we can do, but we have to do better. This is how we have to navigate it, with or without the help of the pastor? Or is it a mix and match of both, where they have to actually work together to get that best sound quality that they will want?
Um, you know, that's a very, very good question. I think the easy way to answer that is to say it's the pastor. Because at the end of the day, right, the pastor is the one who directs the vision of the house. Um, the choir director, or in some churches they'll call it the head of the choir, the head of department, and stuff like that. Their job is to, within the vision of, I mean, a lot of people even go into those roles and they don't even ask the pastor, like, what is your vision for your worship team? Where do you want to go? They just say, oh, I can do it, and then they go into it, and then it's a complete mess, right? Whereas before you even go into it, right, ask, what is your vision? Where do you see this going? Where do you see your choir or your worship team, 5 years from now? Okay, say this is January. What are your expectations of where the worship team should be by December, right? And, you know, as a musician or as a choir director, right, you should have the knowledge to know that, okay, if this is the direction the pastor wants to go, I also need to make sure that the knowledge and the skill set that I have can help them go in that direction, right? And I think in some churches, because it's a paid role, some people will just jump into it because, oh, it's quick money, it's money for me to make and stuff like that. But the thing is, you have to, it's like working in the corporate world. You have to work with the interest of the company you're working for in mind, right? So even no matter how much they pay you, if the moment that you lose, or that you've lost focus of what the direction of that company is going, they'll let you go. In churches, they might not do that as frequently because it's a church organization, right? But you should still apply the same mindset. So I would say it's a pastor's decision ultimately, right? But it's the choir director's role to not just help the worship team, right, but also to help the pastor who might not be as musically inclined as you, to help guide him in the direction that, hey, I see this is where you want to go. These are some things that maybe we need to do that will help us go in that direction. And if that means that you got to re-audition the entire worship team, you got to let him know that, right? So then he would know also how to manage, the people who are in the worship team. If that means that there's some
Audition
equipment
what?
that, was that, no, I mean, if you got to re-audition people because they're singing off key and stuff like that, then, or the thing is, growing up as a musician, right? Like I grew up on you get kicked off the keyboard if you're playing nonsense, or you get kicked off the keyboard or off the drums if you're playing nonsense, right? And you don't get offended by those things. If anything, you take the pain from it and you go home and practice and you develop yourself. There's singers I know that, you know they would sing off key. There's some that I know, and you know them as well. I won't put their names out there. They would sing off key, but they took the time to go and develop themselves. They invested in themselves, right? And those are some of the people that we see now that are artists, and it's not like their music is crappy. Their music is actually good. So they would be known as singing off key or couldn't hold a note, but all they did was develop themselves. So it's the same thing. If you gotta re-audition, you know you gotta filter some people out. Like, it's not the end of the world for that person, right? They can still go and take time to develop themselves. But as far as, okay, this is the direction the worship team is trying to go, maybe you can serve in, prayer team for now, or ushering, while you're developing yourself, and then come back in 6 7 months, do another audition again, and we'll see where it goes from there, right? Because the truth is, especially, and I'll say this, it's a common thing more in African based churches where we see this. In primarily Caucasian churches, they'll probably tell you to send an audition video, right? They'll look at your audition video. The only thing they'll say in the email response back to you is, "Thank you, we've received your video. We'll get back to you." And that's it. They don't even tell you a time they'll get back to you. They don't tell them, they don't tell you whether you're even on the team or not. They just tell you, "We'll get back to you." And that's it, right? So if they get back to you 2 years from now, you know, that's their choice, right? But if they don't get back to you as well, that's also their choice. So it's primarily in African churches where I see, I don't know if it's like an entitlement thing, where people feel like, oh, I attend here and I must, you know, I must be here, it really, I mean, there's ways to manage it, right? And that means you might have to filter people to prayer department, children's department, youth church, and it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, right? And all it just shows, if you get angry about those things, in my opinion, about them maybe shifting you out of a worship team, for me, even from a spiritual side, it just shows spiritual immaturity. Because no matter what department, you should still, as long as you're in church, right, you should still be able to volunteer or serve in some form of or capacity, right? Yes, I a choir director or whatever, but I also serve in other capacities in the same church organization. Even previous church organizations I've attended, I served in other parts to help out, right? Wherever there was help needed, and I knew that, okay, I could probably lend a helping hand here to help them do better, I would do that. So, just because they shift you out of choir for a time frame does not mean it's the end of the world. So it's just being spiritually mature about it. That, okay, maybe it's not the department for me. So yeah.
Wow. You've touched on a lot of things, and I don't want to kind of beat about the bush. So I will go straight to my next question. You're talking about this because you're looking at a scenario of a big church. Let's take the scenario of a growing church where
Yeah.
is the hands we have that we are trying to use, right? And this takes me to the other part of what I know you're also skilled at, which is sound production. Now, a lot of times with the age of COVID, we see that the main church is now online,
Yep.
and the secondary church is now the physical church. So everybody I want to go to a live stream that is popping. And I don't mean popping like, oh, I don't want to hear the word of God, but I want the camera quality to be clear. I want the sound. I don't want to hear woo or or you get that kind of thing. I don't want to hear feedbacks. I want to see clean, crisp. And for me, it's a big struggle when it comes to growing churches where you want to give in your best. You say, oh, we have limited hands. So it's the limited hands that we try and go teach themselves how to go learn or do this thing, or say, oh, you know what, Soji, I think you're quite good. I feel like you're quite good at something around music. You know what? Go figure this thing out. And you see that there's a big struggle. So the new member will kind of feel like, what's going on in this place? And the old member is like, we're using the little hands that we have. How do you balance team management when it comes to sound, choir, and live stream?
The thing with that is everybody has to realize that they're one team. So whether that's your technical and sound guys, with the worship team, you have to look at the picture as, if the worship team sounds good or the sound is good, if, say, I'm working in the technical team, if the sound is good, the audio visuals are good, the worship team sounds good, my team looks good, right? Whereas if the audio is bad, right, not only does the choir then the worship team look bad, but the video likely will also look bad because you're now hearing feedback and stuff like that. So it just you have to have an understanding of, how do I best put this? You want to go with a mindset of how do we, ensure that this just goes smoothly. And sometimes that might mean doing a dry run even of, the service before, right? So maybe, Friday night or something like that, you have a dry run of who will who will do what and when they will do it. So whatever little kinks that you're going to run into on Sunday morning, right, you can anticipate those things
So that
beforehand.
means that the technical team is in the choir rehearsals.
Essentially, I mean, especially when the thing is, I remember years ago I listened to this message from TD Jakes, and he basically was talking about people wanting to go into, you know different careers and stuff like that. And he said you have to walk what you're talking. So if you say you want to be a full-time musician, or you want to delve into a certain ministry, right, are you okay, you might not have a gig now, right, but are you treating it like it's already an 8 to 5 job, in the sense that, are you waking up from 8 a.m. or getting ready for work at 8 a.m. and then you're practicing, for the 8 hours that you technically would be at work, right? Or are you online applying for jobs between that 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. that you want to be working, maybe in oil and gas or whatever? Are you online researching the companies that you want to work for? So it's the same thing, with the technical aspect, and you have to see that, I always say that technical team, audio visuals, all those things, including the worship team, they're one team, right? So it's one team. You're not all trying to get to this part of heaven and this one's trying to get to that part of heaven. We're all trying to get to the same heaven, right? So we all have to be aligned in where we're trying to go. So if the worship team says, okay, I don't maybe like this on my microphone or on this person's microphone, technical people have to be open to listening. And the big part of all this is being open to critique, being open to feedback, right? Okay, this week didn't go so smoothly. Where do we improve next week? And we start looking for the solutions of how we, attack the issues that we maybe had this week. How do we then resolve it so that we don't run into the same issue next week? So it's just the thing of understanding that you might get criticized, but you can't take it personal, right? And I find, in primarily African churches, they take the criticism personal. I'm actually finding it not just African churches. I think in the church in general, if you criticize, they take it personal. But the reality is, it's just the harshness of what we face now, especially in the church world. Why should I be watching a stream that's full of feedback when I can tune into TD Jakes or Joel Osteen, where I won't hear any of that, right? And again, church leadership, that might mean hiring someone who's a professional to do a 6-week training with your team, right? And those things are okay. It's okay to invest in your team, right? That's the purpose of having a team. You invest in them so that they can also, you know, progress to the next level. There are guys that I know now that it's the church they started from with, shooting video, recording audio, and now they run their own professional videography company. They shoot some of the weddings that we see on Bella Niger. They shoot, they run sound for, different events all over the US, right? And where did they start? Just by, the church, right? And a lot of people say, oh, you just play in church, or don't despise those small beginnings. And not even to say, serving in church or serving God is a small thing. That's a big deal, right? But it's a great place to volunteer and own your
And it's
skills.
and it's the only place you're actually going to learn all these things for free.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I think pained me, that when I was younger and they really wanted us to like learn keyboard and so many, I was just focused on, I want to sing, I don't want to sing, I want to sing. And I really wanted to play drums, and I was learning it. But that stereotypical vibe of, oh, girls don't play drums was the one that shut it down. But right now, how I wish I actually learned that keyboard. I would have. I have everything to produce in my house, but I don't know how to play the kids, right? And it's not an
But
excuse not to
here's
learn
the
how
funny thing with
to
what you're saying.
yeah.
Your favorite artists, Todd Delaney plays keys, plays guitar. Travis Green plays keys, plays guitar. Donnie McClurkin plays keys. Jonathan Nelson plays keys. Right? All these guys, and they're good singers. Ty Tribbett plays keys. So they all have a Myron. I can go back, Myron Butler, Kirk Franklin, and they had to step outside of the I can sing and let me learn what these guys are playing. And I think even a lot of times they were already musicians before they delved into singing. You'd be shocked how many, especially in the African American, culture, a lot of those guys, they are beasts on their instrument. You just hear them singing. And a lot of the guys who are playing those instruments, they can sing just as well as those singers, right? So why? Because they have such a talented pool of people to, you're literally pulling, from one person to the other. So everybody's constantly learning from one another. So and again, the church is the place where you can learn for free. But the issue I always run into with church is that once they start, they don't want to learn. They don't want to be a student of what they're doing. And the thing is, you have to always be a student. Music is constantly changing, right? The way music is now is not the way music was in the early 2000s, right? And that was just what, 20 years ago. This way music is now is not how it was in 2010, right? The way music is now is not how it was in 2015. Life is constantly evolving, right? And if you stop learning, you've stopped evolving, right? So you have to continually keep evolving. You have to keep evolving your sound, right? So if I heard an Israel album, what sound did I hear? What pad did I hear there? Let me go and find it. If I can't find it, then learn how to design that sound, right? Though, and all you're doing is, as you're teaching yourself those things, you're developing yourself for, only God knows what. I can share testimonies of musicians of how they even, got into the position that they were in, maybe playing for a certain artist and stuff like that. And it's just in those little things of continual development. So yeah.
So you talked about it's okay to actually pay someone to come teach and stuff like that. Now, so me and a couple of my young adult friends and my pastor were having this conversation, and we're talking about the millennial church, like the church of tomorrow, and that starts from today. The foundation of what we live is what people like John Melody and Co will meet, right?
Yeah.
And the question I was posing to them is, would your children want to serve the Jesus you're serving? Would your children want to go to church when it's 2035? Will your kids want to say, you know what, I'm going for choir practice? And all those things were coming to mind. And for me, as much as I appreciate us serving and stuff like that, I also still believe that volunteering limits a lot of things when it comes to the work, right? You can tell people to volunteer as much as they can, but the truth is it will get to a point in time in their own volunteering or service where they will need those extra skills to get those extra softwares, to get those extra plugins, and it won't just be on a volunteer basis. So would you tell a church to hire a paid staff for certain roles in the church, or would you tell the church train? Because a lot of fear that I've heard churches say is, we've trained certain people and they took our training and they left and they went somewhere else. In my head, I'm like, why are you scared of now training more people? Because this, I know you're seeing today, is a training of another church somewhere else that your own church is using. And when I leave to another church, another person you get. So I think that as long as we're being trained, it doesn't matter where we're going next. But the fear of a lot of churches is, I don't want to train this person. Let the person just keep doing whatever they do want to do and let them keep serving. So do I go from, you know what, if a church comes to consult with Soji Enterprise today, and Soji says, I will strongly suggest that these key roles should be hired, except if you have them in the church and they're very good, these other roles need to be trained ASAP. So what would be your recommendation?
So there are certain roles that I feel the church should have as staff. But again, like you said, if they have someone who is a volunteer and has the skill set, right? And I mean, there's ways you can see if somebody has the skill set, right? You can bring, a third party in to do the audition for that person, just to see where their level of understanding is, or interview that person to see where their level of understanding is. I think worrying about whether people will leave today, to now go and use, say, for example, you brought someone in to come and do a training, for, volunteers in the church and stuff like that, and then worrying about them leaving. The thing is, people will always come and go, whether that's leaving for work or leaving personally, to go to another church or whatever. People will always come and go. So it's not something that I think any church should really be feeling insecure about. The thing is, at the end of the day, the 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 fact that you've invested in people anyways to be able to run things smoothly, because if you're training people, it isn't just one person that you're training. I think you put it up, for people that, hey, we're okay, let's use sound as an example. We're hiring a sound engineer to come and do training over the next 6 weeks, right? So for those who are interested, or just say, okay, for those who serve in the, sound and media department in church, you know, this training is for you guys. And maybe as part of being a volunteer, you have to attend, so many weeks of the training, right? And you'll be shocked that maybe it's one thing that the person training says that hooks somebody to really now take it seriously, right? And some others might not even learn anything, but you can lean on the comfort that, hey, at least you did your part, which was to invest, right? So when excuses come back that, oh, we're not getting this, we're not getting that, you can always lean on, you know what, but I gave you guys the option for the training. What did you do with it? Did you take notes? Go, where are your notes? Go back and review your notes, right? And at that point, even if you're a smart person, you would have developed a relationship, and this is not even now talking from church leadership side, this is a volunteer side. You, over those 6 weeks, you would have maybe developed a decent enough relationship with the person that was doing the training, that you can even just hit them up with a text message and say, hey, I ran into this issue, what are your thoughts on this, right? And you'd be shocked that they won't hesitate to give you, that feedback, that, oh, this is how you might solve that issue, or actually, don't worry, I'll just stop in and I'll show you how to navigate through that issue. And a lot of times that's where, like, the free consultations, and there's so much power in relationships, that people don't understand. There's some things that, even for my own studio, before I buy gear, like 4 or 5 engineers that I'll, just hit up and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this, right? Why do you think I should invest in something like this versus not? And again, it's just because we've built relationship over the course of the years. And it's the same thing when they need help with something that maybe I have a stronger understanding of. They'll also hit me up, and I give them the same feedback. So you're using iron to sharpen iron, right? So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you just, there's ways to filter through these things. You should hire staff in the right places, but if the church maybe is not in a financial position to hire staff, maybe just say, okay, can we work out a deal with these people that, okay, they'll come and train our guys, for maybe 2 months or whatever, and then build from there, right? So I mean, some of my friends who are sound engineers, they'll even just show up randomly at some of the church services, that they're the ones that installed the entire sound rig and everything for them. They'll just show up and see how everything is going. If they see that, oh, I see you guys had an issue here, just run back and tell the engineer that's running that service that, hey, this is, you know what happened at this point of the service, this is how to navigate through that issue, right? And you move on. But you'd be shocked that that little thing will now bring the company or the church back, that, hey, we maybe need help with something, what's your fee, right? So again, it's just the power in relationship and rubbing minds. So yeah.
Wow. Guys, I feel like I'm even being lectured right now. um, my next question is for a singer. So the reason why I'm asking this question, different variation, guys, is because Soji has several hats, so we have to tap in almost every hat he's wearing. And this for a singer who, for some reason or the other, hasn't been active in singing for a very long time and has gotten rusty, right? How do you get back to that place where you make music your passion again, and you kind of refresh and oil that engine and make everything work again? Because it's been a while, or it's been that maybe I joined a church and their musical style is not my style, but I want to work for God and I want to do these things for God. So how do I get back with that clean, swift growth pace that will help me be a better singer?
So the thing I always say is, again, practice, right? Just if you know you want to join the worship team, you know they're likely going to audition you, right? So prepare for an audition, right? So do your vocal warm-ups. You know, you won't go to an American Idol and not be prepared for that audition, right? You wouldn't have gone there without knowing, okay, this is the song I'm gonna sing for my audition. So it's the same way. Apply it to the same way you would apply a level of seriousness if you were getting paid for it, right? Is still what you should apply for church, whether you're paid or you're not paid, right? Just have a plan, right? Prepare yourself, practice, warm up. Okay, I want to audition, say, 3 weeks from now. That means every day, even if it's 30 to 45 minutes, and that 30 to 45 minutes can be, the shower or while you're doing chore, warming your vocals up and singing, right? Find songs that you like, and try to see what the singers are singing there and try to match up to those ranges. Try to listen, train your ears again, right? So because again, if you stop singing, for a while, you have to warm up that engine again. It's like a car that hasn't been driven for months, right? You probably have to charge the battery just to get it to start up again, and then even at that, you have to let it run for a while for it to be able to now be drivable. So it's the same thing with your vocal cords. Just warm yourself up over the maybe course of 2-3 weeks. Get yourself ready, prepare a song, right, that you would go to the audition and absolutely just kill it with. So everything is just preparation. And if singing is a priority, you would make time for it. I think if anything is a priority, right, outside of church activities or the activities that you are committed to, where it's like, okay, I have to do this, or I have to be there. Like outside of that, if it's something that means something to you and is a priority, you would make time for it outside of those times. Sometimes that might mean waking up earlier, sometimes that might mean sleeping an hour later, but if it's a priority to you, you will make time for it.
If it's a priority to you, you make time for it. And I think that will be our go-to for everyone or anyone listening right now. If it's a that what you just said is just a wake-up call to anyone out there. It doesn't even matter if it's not music, whatever it is that you want to be better at. If it's a priority for you, and that's even for myself, I had to sit down, take a break, time off, and say, what can I do to make sure that I still give in my best, even when I do things like get my work done, get my like, especially when it comes to content creation. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of commitment, it's a lot, right? So
It is.
you want to make sure that you're putting in the best. I told myself, and I was sharing with what do you call it, I was telling a couple of friends that I think I have to do a revamp, and the revamp can be that we have to do pre-recordings like this. And if Saturdays cannot work, if motherhood will make me want to, like, okay, this Saturday I have to be at an event, but I don't want to disappoint whoever it is that's already locked in to want to come in 2 o'clock every Saturday to come watch. So what do? I have to make sure that I create time for it. So if it's for me, and I was talking to a business owner yesterday during a concert, and I said, you know what, if it's for you to pay for a package where you create all your content and let it, there's so many automated what do you call it, applications where you just put in your content and it uploads itself, right? You just need to put the dates, the time, your content, blah blah blah. That it goes. So, like you said, if it's priority, you make time for it. And I think it's very important. As a wrap up in the last less than or 10 minutes of the show, I want to talk about something that's really, 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 really big for me, which is as a producer, a lot of people expect you to create magic but don't necessarily put magic into the microphone. And this is a conversation me and you have had over time, where people have this expectation of, oh, I want to sound like Tasha Cobbs, and they say, oh, Oga Soji, I want to. This is how I have seen someone. I remember my producer friend in Nigeria told me that someone came and said that was when Ekweme was raining, and be like, you know what, this is Ekweme. I want you to replicate it in this my song. And he's like, have you sat down to actually think and ask God what exactly he wants this song to sound like? You just want to copy another person, and we've seen it over and over and over and over and over and over time, right? So for you as a producer, what's that struggle you see when it comes to working with artists, when people want to give what they didn't have, or when people want to have what they didn't give?
I guess what's the struggle as a producer? The struggle sometimes I go through with artists is, I guess, understanding where you are at, like, should I say where your level is at vocally. If you say you want to sound like Tasha Cobbs, are you ready to do the work Tasha Cobbs did to get to the point that she's at? Because that means that we can't release your project this year, because Tasha Cobbs did not become who she is now this in 1 year, right? Tasha Cobbs is a product of, so many years of practice, repetition, and, being open to critique, being open to feedback, of so many years of that to where she's at now. And even at that, I'm pretty sure she's still open to critique and open to feedback, from the people that she works with, right? So, that it's funny. I remember it was years ago. Ty Tribbett actually posted this thing that if the project is not at the level that you want it to be, right, and you know that financially you can't afford to get it there right now, it's okay to put the project on hold, right, until you have the funds to be able to get it to where you need it to be. One of the things I always tell, like, artists that I work with is, don't come to my studio without having written down what you're going to sing, right? Your ad libs included, right? Don't come here and not be prepared. You can't just come in here and think that I can just flow. Which river are you flowing into? Right? It doesn't work that way. You have to come with a game plan, right? The Bible tells us, write the vision and make it plain. So you've already got an arrangement of the song at this point. You've heard what the background vocals are doing, right? So how do you then sing around the background vocals with the instrumentation that's there, right? Those are little things there's so much little things that go on in a song that, ultimately make it add up to one big thing that we hear, in maybe 5-minute song or a 10-minute song or whatever. But have you gone through it to write down, at this point of the song, this is what I want to say, or this is the maybe Bible scripture that's in reference to this song? So, or what testimony am I going to attach to this song? Right? You just want to come in the studio and flow. I'm sorry, Kole Wek. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a game plan and be prepared. Just as I can't go and teach a worship team and not have listened to the songs that they're going to be singing beforehand, so that I know, okay, this is how I'm going to teach it. Or based on the skill level of the people that are there, I might not be able to do these little nuances that are in the harmonies or whatever, right? But I can at least get them from, from A to Z of the song by going about it this way. If I don't do that, then we all just go there and it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, right? So you have to come to the studio prepared and be open to, okay, let's make this change here. I like this idea here. You bring on a producer, and a producer is not just the person who arranges the song, right? Your job as a producer is to oversee the entire project from beginning to end, whether it's a single or it's an album. That might mean that you're not even the one arranging that song. That might mean that when you hear this song, you know what? I know this arranger that's based here. He might be the person that's better to arrange this type of a song than myself. I'll still oversee the project and ensure that with this budget we're able to work with it or whatever. But you also, as a producer, have to look out for the best interest of that artist you're working with. Your job as a producer is to oversee, right? So sometimes that might mean you're not the one mixing, or you're not the one arranging. Like, it's okay to get. I even find it more. It's not as tasking on you when you're doing everything yourself. It's less tasking, and again, you get a different perspective of the song from the different people
And
as
even
well. So,
sound and
and even a
feedback.
different sound. Yep. So when you involve others, because the way that I might hear the song is different from the way that a Jamel Kimbrough will hear the song, or um, John Mike might hear the song, right? But they're little nuggets that they give you, or that, okay, let's arrange it this way. Okay, maybe I in the transition it this way, right, into the bridge, right? And the thing is, those are things that you're now taking and learning from them, so that when another song comes as well, that, okay, this one I might not have the budget for it, but I learned this thing from this guy. Maybe we can apply a similar idea here, right? So it's just another avenue to also learn and grow from other people. There are times where I've arranged a song. By the time I hear what the bass player maybe did on the song, I'll go back and retrack, the keys and the strings and stuff like that, because what they were playing gave me more ideas. So it's just being open. So same thing with the singers. You just have to be open. But if you want to sound like Tasha Cobbs, man, you got work to do.
You gotta do a Tasha Cobb's
Yeah.
homework, and a Tasha Cobb's homework doesn't mean that you do 30 minutes a day. You know how funny, even for the like mainstream artists or performers or whatever. There was a day that I was actually just in that, I don't know what, I think it was an ad on YouTube or something, and they were asking Kim Kardashian her morning routine, and she was like, "Oh, she wakes up 5 o'clock, goes after she does she goes to the gym for 2 hours." I'm like, sure. Like, I'm not saying that they're not added stuff to them, but you would see the level of, even this guy Mark Wahlberg was saying the same thing. He's in the gym from 5 to 8. And I
Yeah.
look at the level of diligence and dedication these guys have, and I'm like, when are we? And that was where the conversation for us yesterday night was going. Where yes, the millennial church, but the church that we're trying to grow starts from today. It means that if it has to take you to tell someone to excuse them from a department to go to another one, or to go do something else, or to go back to the drawing board and sit down and say, okay, how can I improve my skill, or whatever it is that you have to do to be better, to demand that excellence you want. I think it's high time that we wake up as a body, right, to say, you know what, we can't even take mediocrity for an answer, right? We don't even want to even take it anymore, because yes, the Holy Spirit. And I've heard people say, "Oh, don't focus on the voice, focus on the spirit." I'm like, bro, I remember in the Bible, David, every time he went to the temple, he took skillful men. So why is it hard?
Mm.
And I've said it several times. You don't need 10 people to be in your choir, or 10 people to be on your record. You just need 3 people. You need just 2 people, or just one person that knows the assignment. You understand? And let the person just do the work for you, right? So I think a lot of times we struggle as either leaders or workers or whatnot, and we just say, let this person just manage this thing and whatnot. But yeah, I think this
There's
conversation.
something
Yeah.
there's something you actually brought up that reminds me of something my wife said. This was a while back. She said something that, David played before kings, right? And when we talk about psalmists and stuff like that, we talk a lot about David. And he played before kings. And I now, my wife said something that, do you know how good you have to be to play for a king? Right? And it's funny, I never looked at it that way. But when she opened that question up, right, I now tried to say, okay, who are the modern day, kings and queens that we see, right? Like, we see the, Queen Elizabeth, or your prime ministers, or your presidents of, different countries. And when I remember watching Obama's inauguration, it was like the best of the best musicians that were there to play for that president, and same thing with Biden's inauguration recently, right? You look at the musicians and the singers that were there, they were the top, if they used the school, it was likely a top music school band that was there. If they got, your everyday artist, it was some of the top people, right? Who are the people that come and play at the Super Bowl, right? It's so, you know, and it now goes back to that scripture that, do you know a man who is diligent in his work?
He
He
will
will
stand
stand
before
before
kings and
and
not
not
mere
mere
men.
men.
Yeah.
So if you're diligent in what you're doing, right, to you it might just seem like, oh, I'm just singing in church or I'm playing in church. And there was another video I saw, TD Jakes talking about how Woman Thou Art Loosed went from being, a, I think it was like a theater play, into a book and into an actual movie, and he talked about how there was just some movie director that was sitting in the in the
Yeah.
theater watching the play,
And his comment was, "You never know who is
who's
who
in the
is sitting
room.
in your audience."
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing you have to apply to yourself as a musician or as a singer. Your church might be small, your church might be big. You never know who is going to be in that room, right? You just never know. So, you should give the same effort that you would give if there was 20,000, 30,000 people in the room. You should give it the same effort for 5, 10 people in the room. So again, to be able to play at a level where you're playing in front of kings and queens or world leaders, right? You got to be good at what you're doing, right? You got to know your stuff. So that's where, you got to develop the skill. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the reality is, it's not going to miraculously happen overnight. It's a gradual process. And going back to what you said, that Kim Kardashian wakes up at the gym or wakes up at 5 a.m., goes to the gym, and like all the successful people that we see, and they're maintaining their success. They wake up with the sun, they rise with the sun, and they and that's where the time management comes in. They know how to manage their time. They know that, okay, by 10 o'clock I'm in bed, by 3 4 a.m. I'm getting up so that I can get to the gym for 5 a.m. or whatever needs to be done. So by the time that it's 9 o'clock, when the average person is just waking up, the millionaire has already achieved so much between 5 and 9. You're just waking up, but you want the same level of success. And I'm not saying sleeping in is a sin or anything like that, right? To each their own. But if you're aspiring to that level of success, which I think is just a general life principle, you have to be ready to do the work to get there. Rick Ross also said something years ago: don't hate on my shine. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, right? What you do with your own 24 hours is entirely in
Up to
your
you.
hand.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
if some want to sleep their destiny and their life away, by all means sleep away, right? But if you want to make a greater impact in life, and really stand out, and be again diligent, and stand before kings and not mere men, right? Then you have to put the time into the craft or into whatever you're doing. So
Thank you very much,
um,
Soji. I am super grateful. And for those that
thanks for
want
having
to,
me. This is
that
actually fun.
want to reach out to you, I'll put the link, and is the link to his Instagram in the description, so you can reach out, send him a DM. If you have any questions, if you want to do any consult, he's ready and happy to work with you
Hit
for a
me up.
very wonderful, wonderful
Let's get to
price.
work.
Nothing is free in Freetown. But yes, thank you for coming on the show today. My co-host
Thanks
wants
for
to say
having
hi.
me.
My co-host wants to say hi to everybody. Hi, Mama. Say hi,
Hi,
Uncle
John
Soji.
John. Hey, Mama.
Say hi, Uncle Soji.
Happy belated
All right,
birthday.
people. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And we're sure that you've learned one or two things. Till we see you next time on an amazing episode of Life Matters with Anadi Jure. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.